Be patient, stay the course. Don't think you have to take on every contract. You do not have to accept every gig. You do not have to work with everybody. It's okay to say no. Know your worth. Please know your value. You bring a lot to the table, and you're not just an assistant. You're not just somebody's assistant. You're bigger than that. You're better than that.
Hey, Emily, I'm super excited to have you join me for this episode of Coffee with Closers.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Most certainly. So I was looking at your career history. You're still in Alaska. You're originally from Alaska. You went down to study in London, got bachelor's and master's there, and now you're back in Alaska running an organization. So I'm just curious, what led you to leave this beautiful place of Alaska to go to study in London?
I'll try to keep it brief, but when I graduated high school, I was living in rural Alaska. So I was like 400 miles west of where I'm at now, which is like the biggest hub city, Anchorage. So I was out in this really 5,000 person town, and I graduated high school, and my friends and I went on a trip to Thailand as a graduation gift to ourselves. And we were like, Thailand, let's go check it out before kicking off to college. Everyone was going off to college in the fall. So I went on this trip, and then I got back to Alaska, and I worked some job that made me a bunch of money over the summer, because you can do that up here. And I decided to take a year off. I wanted to do what people in Europe and the UK might be familiar with, a gap year. Mm-hmm. So I did my gap year, and I decided I want to go see the world. And I did some traveling, and I ended up in the UK on like the very latter end of my trip. And I visited London, and I was just like, this is where I want to be. Every romantic movie scene in my head, every music that I'd ever heard by a British artist, it was all swimming in my head, and I was living this big fantasy. And I got home and somehow convinced my parents that it was a good idea to go to college in the UK. So I applied, and I was accepted to King's College in London, which is part of the University of London system. And I studied physical geography there, and I focused on climatology, and I thought I wanted to save the world for a while. Realized there wasn't really a path in that. So I went to a master's program to study corporate finance and real estate and strategy, which again sounds like a completely different side of the fish. But I thought that I wanted to do environmental impact assessments for commercial builds. I thought that was a really nice segue, going from wanting to save the environment into working kind of cross-culture with corporate and trying to figure out a way to bring my best foot forward. So I was actually hired as a graduate economist by a company to navigate my way into the world and do what I thought I wanted to do. So I was really excited. Everything was going my way. I had been hired right out of grad school. I had a great job. I had a car stipend. I was going to be paid like the equivalent of $60,000 US a year. At 22, I was just like, that's like things were going. And then I made a really weird decision. I made a good decision at the time to come back and see my brother. So let me back up. I had about a 2-week gap before I was supposed to start this job. And when I had to finish my master's thesis, and then I had to go turn it in and do all the things. But I had this 2-week gap. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go see my brother before he deploys to Iraq, because he had just been pushed into active duty out of West Point and everything. So I was like, I got to spend some time with him. So I get a 2-week break. I see him. Says come back to Alaska. And then I fly back from Alaska to the UK, and I'm like 20 minutes out from landing in the UK. And I've got the little entrance card they give you, name, where you're going to be staying, what are you doing here? And every single time I had entered, I would always put student, because I was a student, but I was like, oh, but I'm a worker now. Like I'm starting to get employment, but I had to go through the whole visa conversion process, which takes a little bit of, but there are visa consultants at the company. They do that. So I put student, and then I went /worker. And that was the biggest mistake of my life. And I walked up to immigration, and I gave them my card, and I said, hey, here we go. And the lady's, you have a student visa. And I was like, yeah, I know. Here's my student visa. And she goes, but you said you're going to work. And I was like, eventually I'm going to work. Yeah. She goes, but you're on a student visa. And I was like, yeah. She goes, why did you write worker? And I said, I don't know. And I got detained, put into immigration jail for 7 hours, released into the UK for 48 hours to physically turn in my thesis, which I had to physically turn in. He gave me 48 hours to collect my belongings. And on Monday, I had to fly out of the country.
Wow.
And I could not keep my job. They tried for about 5 months to see if they could get everything, but it really didn't make sense because they could hire somebody there. I was not a priority. So I lost that opportunity, and I came back to the States and had to restart everything. And that is when I ended up in kind of the nonprofit land, again, not really knowing what that was going to lead to. But I realized I was really good at helping people stay very organized, and I was really good at administrative work. And so from all of the things that I thought were going to happen in England and London literally vanished, and I started afresh. And so I came back to Alaska and reset from there.
Wow. Were you able to finish the school though and submit all your
Yeah,
paperwork?
yeah.
Okay.
I was able to get my thesis in and I got my master's program and I graduated and everything. So all the schooling was good. There was nothing, I hold no grudges anymore. At the time I did, but it was just a really just bad timing, bad luck. Sometimes being too honest is not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's a simple word, right? Worker. It can change the destiny of your life, but who knows? It all works out for the better and sometimes in life, right? Like you just never know. So
We may not be
obviously,
here in this
yeah,
conversation right now.
exactly. So the nonprofit world, and you decided to start EBO. But tell me a little bit about the entrepreneurial journey. Did you always have this passion to start a business and going helping other organizations?
Initially, I don't think I was thinking I would start my own business. I think I
Mm-hmm.
thought I would just help people along the way. And that sounds a little naive, but I just mean, oh, somebody asked me for some guidance here, some guidance there. I would just help, but I would work in whatever capacity I needed to for whatever employer I needed to. So I would initially thought that I could just bring my expertise wherever it may fly. But when I got to Alaska, I moved back out to Bethel initially, and I was working for my family's business, which is a car rental and a freight delivery business out in Bethel, owned by my stepfather. And he guided me a lot through business ownership and entrepreneurship and all of that, but in a very growing capacity. And that's just one moment. I'm getting feedback from something. I don't know how to turn off that notification. Bear with me just a second. There we go. What was I saying? So
You're talking
I was
about your stepfather gave you the business advice on how to be an
I was having
entrepreneur.
this wonderful experience. I apologize about that.
No.
I having this experience out in Bethel, learning from him, and I realized that at some point I needed to not be there anymore. I couldn't have my future there, but I wanted to get as much experience as I could from him. And so that definitely got my wheels turning about entrepreneurship. But again, I thought, no, I'm better as like a helper. I'm an assistant. I'm good as like an executive assistant. That's my role. So that's what I started doing is like program management, program assistant. I worked finally when I moved into Anchorage. I started with a nonprofit in energy science and weatherization work as a project manager, which when we say project management, yeah, we're working with people, but we're still doing a lot of administrative, a lot of paperwork shuffling. It's a lot of communication, a lot of court. All of that kind of falls into where my expertise continued to grow in that arena. I was in that realm, but I also gained a lot of background in nonprofit management and understanding how all of that went. And then I transitioned into another nonprofit role, which is where I met my mentor who guided me through being an executive assistant and grants manager up into the point where he wanted me to be the executive director of that organization. But I, at that point, said, maybe I should be doing this on my own. I was giving, again, like so much of this really good part of me, but I wanted to spread the wealth. And I thought maybe here's an opportunity now that he's retiring and somebody else, it's not going to be me. I told him, I said, it's not going to be me. So I think I want to do something else. And he said, you should help people, be a consultant. You're just good at all these things. You need to go help people be organized. You've helped do all of these things for this period of time and go off and do. I was like, oh, I'm going to see what happens. So I threw caution to the wind and I started the consulting business itself as a solo, like, I'm going to help people get organized, like very like baseline stuff. And I didn't even know what that meant. I honestly didn't even know what that meant, but I continued working for the nonprofit for the full year, building up ideas and concepts and clients and the whole structure behind it and realizing that what I could bring to the table was essentially the same thing, but in a freelance capacity. And I could do it in more like minimal, smaller pieces so that I could help more clients. And therefore I transitioned all the practices and I had built out for years in these different organizations and helping these specific missions and thinking I'm going to translate that to a wider audience. And thus EBO was born and has thus evolved into what it is today.
Yeah. So when did you decide it was time to actually bring on a CEO? And now you're a CEO and you became more of a COO role.
Yeah, it's interesting, actually. It may be a bit of a semantics thing, too. And because I don't know how specific we are to our roles a lot of the time. But when I started, I was wearing all the hats. And then I realized that I could not go much further with just myself. And that was about even like 18 months into the process. I was too many moving parts and I knew that I couldn't grow. I just couldn't get to another stage without another set of hands. And so my partner, being my husband, had been working in oil and gas and data collection and analyst. He was an analyst and he had, again, a really interesting background, but he came on board and we didn't really know what our roles were going to be. And initially it wasn't that he was operating as the CEO and I operating as a COO. It's just we sat down and started working together and he and I decided we could make it work for him to join the company full time as an employee. And I was already converted myself to an employee at that point. And so we sat down, worked together for a few months, and started trying to navigate who does what, or who excels in what arena, who's stronger there, really just for name face sakes. A lot of it was more, I want this brand of professionalism and we're legitimate, we're doing the things that we're really competent at, but I do understand that my operations expertise and the things that I do on a daily basis are much more aligned with a CEO's role. And his work is much more aligned with an executive's role. He does a lot more fractional executives type services over me. So we had this kind of come to, not Jesus moment, but we were like, okay, this seems to make sense. So I think I'm probably a little bit more involved on an external level. I'm like more figurehead, interestingly, which a lot of people would associate with the CEO, but that's where we're at though, as far as that language. But as far as he is I'm a 51% shareholder and he is a 49% shareholder, but he is my 50-50 partner and has been for almost since the beginning. And he really does bring this completely different side to the EBO. He's the sound, less I get very excited and want to do all the things, and he pulls me back and slows me down and is very cautious and very risk averse, which is great. Like, you got to have the balance. And yeah, so that's how he came into the picture. And then this number of years later, six odd years later, realizing then we needed a third party to start really getting into a different space. And that's where we're at now.
Yeah. I work with my brother and we started the company, and same thing. There's completely two different personality type. And sometimes, especially if you're family, there's that other dynamic, right? You have your family dynamic, and then you also have just this working together dynamic. Sometimes it can complicate things. And we're now separated by states. So he's in Florida, I'm in Chicago. So that actually brings a little bit of sanity. But when we were working together, we were in the same office, and then we're also seeing each other for all the family function. It was actually pretty problematic because it's just too much sometimes can be problematic, but it does help. There's a level of trust that you have. Like, hey, both of you have the best interest in mind, right? Nobody's going to undermine each other's authority or vision or goals, that we're going to support and have that same mindedness, which helps, but also comes with a little bit of complexity when you have relationship involved in it as well. You don't want to mess up your family dynamics and relationship over some stupid business
it's hard.
Disagreement. Yeah.
It's hard. It takes a little bit of navigating on a daily basis. We've gotten really good at it. We've established a lot of really strong boundaries, and we both have separate spaces in the house that are our office spaces, and we're very much able to isolate during the day, which is super, super important. But I also, like you said, like, you got to find that person you really trust and really connect with. And when it comes to the work that we do, the specialization of it and the nuance and the detail, there's nobody I trust more than him. And he knows what my expectations are. And again, it's taken us 6 years to even consider having a third person in the loop. And Judith bringing her on has been just incredible, but it just took me a really long time to find a competent third party. Because again, our workmanship is so critical to what we do, and everything has to be almost perfect. I know perfection isn't really a thing, but you can't mess up. And you want to make sure that people feel like they have that person that is going to cover the things that they can't cover in that moment, whatever it may be. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know EBO, your company, stands for efficient, balanced, organized. Is that kind of like the acronym?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit, because I know you help business across different industries and sizes and everything else. So what are some common challenges that you're often coming across when you're engaging a business and assisting them with getting more efficient, organized, and balanced and organized?
I think it's probably delegation, trying to get things off people's plate that they've had control of for a really long time. I think people really struggle with coming to somebody else to ask for help. And when they do, and in our experience, it's normally they want to try something new. They want to expand here, explore this, but they're just not quite sure how to do that, who to ask to do that. And so we often come in a really very consulting, like, introductory capacity, just to ease people's minds a little bit. And let them know that the challenges that they're experiencing, everybody experiences, and that we're here to be as flexible and accommodating as possible to help navigate those challenges, whatever they may be. But we often see things like, one of the most common ones is utilizing like new softwares, new technology, people going from analog to digital. One of our longest serving clients, when he came to me originally, he was using a literal notepad and a pen to write down his scheduled clients, and he had a lot of them. And I was like, we got to go digital. We got to start doing things in a different fashion. But I had to hold his hand, and it took a long time. But that's the way we think that sometimes you do have to take things a little slower with certain clients, and those challenges that they're presenting, whatever they may be, whether it's employee retention, streamlining systems or processes, that it can be a scary process. And most of our businesses and organizations that we work with are on the smaller side. And so it's really just navigating that initial fear of it all, of needing that extra help and realizing you want to grow, and letting us help them guide that process. So that's probably where we're most effective when it comes to that.
And when obviously coming to the realization is the biggest thing, right? Business owners usually they think they can handle it all. They're trying to do too much all at once. And then they come to the realization, I can't sustain this, right? Like either something got to drop, either they might sacrifice either sales or marketing or operations or finance, or one of those areas is going to really suffer. And then, and then they're like, save me now, because I'm in trouble. But how do you coach and train business leaders to start recognizing patterns where it's coming to a point? Because a lot of times I think people get stuck in their limiting beliefs, like, oh, we don't have the financial means to hire the next necessary head, so I just got to carry this extra burden. I'm just going to work longer hours. But they don't understand that actually keeps them tied, and they're going to be working in the business, not on the business, right? Like that. Right. That usually ended up happening. How do you get people out of that mindset?
Typically, again, taking it slow, showing them that there are other ways to manage certain things, certain systems. A lot of the times it's introducing in, again, like applications and software that can make their lives a lot easier, but holding their hand through that process. It's a multitude of different things that we see that I'm trying to think of some really good examples. So we have one client who they came to us to do all of their like payments for performers. It's like a burlesque company, and they have performances and performers that do shows monthly, and they wanted somebody to take over the people or the payroll, the monthly payroll, and a couple of other things. And we have taken what was just a blast in the face initially, and they had taken about a year to decide that they even wanted to hand this over. But a blast in the face of spreadsheets and information and things all over the place, and us saying, hey, let's take a step back and see if we can bring this back to an organized and functional place. And it just takes a little, again, hand holding, but helping them see that it doesn't have to be this crazy. And initially in your brain, like I go through this every day where I get overwhelmed and I don't even know which direction I'm looking, but I normally just use my own experience and try to convey that, yeah, in this moment, it seems like it's an explosion of information and you can't let go of anything because it's too scary. But once we showed them that we can clean up this spreadsheet and we actually can get rid of this spreadsheet and we can cut out that part. You don't need that. You just take things and put it into a more clear path. It eases, it brings balance, it brings calm. And I feel like that's as basic as it gets, like just cleaning people up a little bit in their head and on paper and on process or on like systems, whatever they might use, and seeing that all the busyness and the crazy can get organized and you can break it down and make it functional. It just, somebody's just got to take a step back. So that's I'm sorry, there was a rounded way of answering all that.
Yeah. So basically like someone who's probably dealing with a lot of mess, they think this is the only way to do it, helping them realize, okay, there's a different or better way to solve that, whatever the business challenge is. Sometimes it is with processes implemented, or sometimes it's a technology, or sometimes it is a personnel, right? Like you have to have a person taking that responsibility. And you mentioned a lot of these companies are kind of in the early days of growth. What are some common core problems? Like apart from the fact that, hey, they have a lot of chaos in businesses, where do you see is the biggest impact you can bring to organizations? Is it mostly on the operational efficiency gaining, or is it sales? Is it marketing? Where do these companies usually have the biggest impact could be made?
Yeah, definitely operational efficiency, shifting from, like I said, requiring the time it takes to write things down and actually having a system do that instead. We're able to really bring, I think, peace of mind, which might not seem like a necessary that important, but it is very important, I think, especially to solo entrepreneurs. We have seen just like a huge increase in revenue for one client specifically, because we were able to eventually convince him to start utilizing QuickBooks and to, again, shifting to having people managing his phone lines and basic things like that. We help people realize that there are different ways of doing business, and that really streamlines communication for people. It helps people stay on top of the things they need to stay on top of and allows them to do the things they need to do. So we can either help them maintain things in the background, any administrative or operational tasks or needs they they may have, and they can focus on what they're doing, whether that be the sales or the production side of things or the creating this or creating that. We help take that off people's plates. But what we also do is help them build out their foundations for the future so that they don't need us anymore. So that hopefully by the time we're done working with them, they have built either whether it be employees or systems or new facilities, equipment to do the best work that they want to do, to get into that space that they want to be in, to get to that level, to get to that revenue stream, whatever it may be. It's a multitude of things. Sometimes we stay with people for a really long time. We have some really long clients that just want us to be there as essentially their business managers, where we're available at the drop of a hat, and we help just keep things running. We have other folks that come to us for a couple months because they're looking for HR support and personnel guidance. And so we help them hire people, which again, in turn helps them get to where they want to be, but they're like one and done. Here's your contract. Thank you for doing business with me. We could become available as needed. So it's a multitude of different things that we really help with. But I think it's just, again, getting people away from just having 10 billion things and helping them really see that they can do things in a more structured and organized way, and that we're available to help them with that.
Yeah. So sometimes you would think, like an entrepreneur in today's day and age, everybody can assume, or at least we think that most people understand you have to use an accounting software, you need a CRM, or you need some sort of a platform that manages all your appointments. If you're actually a field service company that does maybe like maintenance or something like that. Why aren't more people quickly coming to those conclusions? What are the obstacles? Is it the lack of knowledge? Is it just the fear of change? I'm just curious why some of these companies, because I see very successful companies have gone much further than that. You're talking some of these are much younger companies, probably in their journey of becoming a little bit more mature. But I've seen companies that are very mature that still don't have a CRM system in place, and they're making money. It's not like they're not making money. There's an actual HVAC supply company that we're actually working with right now, nearly does about $840 million in revenue with no CRM. But they're one of the largest supplier of HVAC parts and repair materials for contractors. But I'm like, how on earth do you survive this long without a CRM? They're like, we don't know. This is how we operate. So I don't know. I'm just curious, like, why aren't these people more open and receptive? It isn't lack of revenue. It isn't because they haven't been around long enough to even realize that there's a need.
Some people have figured it out. Some people have people like me. One client, in case in point, Paul's Tree Service, does not have a CRM. They use QuickBooks for accounting management. I am essentially like their CRM. I manage all of those things, but I'm not a platform, obviously, and not an application. On the other side of that, I think it's too much variety. There's too many options. And so if you're a baby boomer, I can't remember what the age range is, but say you're like 65 right now and you've been running this business for 25 years and somebody comes up and says, hey, why don't you do this instead? And they're saying, we've been doing this for 25 years. We've been doing it really well. Maybe a CRM will help. Maybe this system will boost a little bit here and there. But at that stage, I feel like they're not going to really change. Maybe. But then you think even like you and I, right? If you and I wanted to go look for a different CRM for 2025, maybe we're trying to explore something. How long do you end up going and exploring and looking and thinking, oh, maybe I'll trial this, maybe I'll trial that, and reviewing the tech reviews and and trying to find that app that then you can trust to refer to somebody else. So it becomes this really awkward, challenging thing that I know about 1,000,000,001 different extensions and add-ons and applications and all of that. But I think people are overwhelmed, like just overwhelmed, and a little older age range gets even more overwhelmed because I'm overwhelmed. I'm 40 and I get really just like everything comes too fast and I don't know how to make decisions when it comes to the technology. AI, another great example. People want to use it effectively, but it's just, there's too many different angles and options to go. It's just a lot. And I think that's where what I see in my experience is really resistance to that change, especially if things have been working well. We have a client now who's coming to us with kind of basic needs, but they're an electrical cooperative, right? So they deal with all the telephony and the telecommunications and the microwave radio and all of these different elements. And it's like they're living in this Stone Age when it comes to all the other things. And yet they're functioning. They're one of the biggest, one of two in town, I believe. And but somehow it works. And for me and in fact, we have tried to introduce the client to the potential for the software that the Howie software I was talking to you about, and the client person I'm in touch with is excited about the concept, has seen and talked to the people about it. There's potential. We're like, okay, wheels are greasing. But up top, you're just going to get, no, we don't need that. Why would we want anything to make anything either more streamlined or effective when it's working the way but then you have a whole nother side of that is larger scale, medium to large businesses and corporations that have a whole different perspective.
So when it comes to like adopting a software or changing the processes or even hiring a new person, a lot of times there's a resistance internally. Sometimes it's personal. They're pushing back. Oh, we don't want to learn this new software. We already have this. And a lot of times people are afraid of change. And then sometimes to keep the peace, the leadership hold off on pushing changes as well, right? In those instances when you know a change is required, but nobody wants to actually go through the change. And how do you do that change management? How do you get the leadership and the people to buy into the whole concept of we have to change and here's what we're going to do and how it's going to impact the whole organization?
Communication first and foremost, lots of communication, keeping people in the loop on everything, and then making the process, whatever it may be, if the decision is made to do it, as simple as possible. So lots of guidelines and instructions. And then if we're involved, we're guiding that process in the background. So we're able to monitor that communication, make sure that leadership is communicated effectively with the same information, and that transition piece can be a lot more smooth. It doesn't always go very smoothly, but when it does, you feel like as long as your staff is being supported, you feel like they're going to transition smoothly. Pushback does happen. I'm always an advocate for just consistent, again, like I hate to say this again, but like just consistent communication and ensuring people are heard too, because a lot of the times things come up and people are like, this isn't work, like a platform's not working for me in this arena or that arena. Coming up with ways in which to get feedback regularly, to assess the usage of things along the way, setting up that system, that plan for implementation, being very clear about expectations during that implementation period, checking in after a certain period of time, any type of succession planning, change management planning, whether it be with an application or personnel, it just has to be planned carefully, communicated effectively, and followed up on accurately. And I think that can be the most effective.
Yeah. Obviously, you're in Alaska, right? How is the business and the climate? A lot of times, even when I try to do shopping and stuff like that, it says free shipping is not available in Alaska. So there's a lot more complexity operating as a business, right? And I don't even know how interested people are probably from buying from there, because I'm sure that brings a lot of complexity in terms of cost of shipment and everything else. So what are some challenges that our businesses in Alaska faces that maybe in the mainland part of the rest of the U.S. isn't facing?
Yeah, definitely shipping expenses, different regulations. I'd say access to workforce, probably one of the biggest issues. Workforce retention up here is a really big issue. Attracting the workforce up here is a really big issue. Yeah, production of materials, production of anything, it's going to be that much more expensive just to get the materials here unless it's being made here. Transportation costs, doing business with the whole state is very challenging because you can't access the whole state by road. So when I say transportation challenges, I don't just mean getting things to Alaska, but actually going out and doing work in the communities requires the weather to be cooperating with you and for a plane to be available to get you to point A to point B. There's just things that people don't, seasonal challenges that you experience up here. A lot of things that I can't control that no one can control, but you work with it. You learn to be more patient and you learn to prep heck of a lot longer in advance. Things that you just wouldn't even think would be an issue, like maybe getting a permit for something, takes 6-7 months. And then you have your workforce, right? You have staffing challenges. So the permit becomes 7-10 months out now because you don't have the staff to do that. And then we talk like bigger on a federal level, jobs changing and things shifting, funding going all over. So Alaska's in a really unique position, and sometimes it's in a really poorly unique position when it comes to certain things. But there's a resiliency up here that really matters to a lot of people. And I think that's why people can be really successful. It's hard. It's a hard place to be, but there's a way to do it. You have to be very resilient about it and honest with yourself. If you're going to do it, you're going to be, hey, we're here, we're in Alaska, we're making this happen. This is a dig your heels in.
Yeah. Be more appreciative of those people that are running business in Alaska too, right? Be more gracious to them as well. So what was one of the boldest decisions you made, other than just starting the business? What was one of the boldest decisions you made as you were building this company yourself?
Probably I'd say when Mitch joined the business and he quit his job, when we both went totally full-time EBO, that was probably the boldest move in that thus far, because it was like all in. If this doesn't work, this doesn't work. What are we going to do when we have no income except for the business? And somehow I just never thought it wouldn't work, which I think is the attitude you have to have. You cannot go into thinking, I don't have a plan B. This is my plan A to Z. Like, this is it. And I think that's a really, like, you have to be of that mindset. And I actually told somebody that the other day, and I think that they just thought that you have savings and you have this and you have that. And I said, I have things. Yeah, but if all my contracts got canceled tomorrow, I would be in a world of trouble. And so what do you so yeah, that's been the leap. That was the biggest, boldest thing I've done thus far. Yeah, beside just taking this on and doing it all. And now making some considerations about moving as well. We're thinking about maybe exploring taking the business on to a digital nomad type situation. So we're exploring a lot of different things, being able to work in a much more remote capacity instead of just Alaska. But it's all a challenge and it's all a risk to me, but I ride with that. And I think that's what has made me sustain this long.
Yeah, that's the difference between an entrepreneur and somebody who's just want a comfortable, cushy job, because they're not willing to take the risk. And obviously the reward is not as sizable as an entrepreneur who's taking that big challenge. What advice would you give younger self, knowing what you know today?
I feel like I was thinking about this the other day too. I think I'd just say, be patient, stay the course. Don't think you have to take on every contract. You do not have to accept every gig. You do not have to work with everybody. It's okay to say no. Know your worth. Please know your value. You bring a lot to the table, and you're not just an assistant. You're not just somebody's assistant. You're bigger than that. You're better than that. And yeah, just stay the course. You got this. And I know that maybe there will be some bumps in the road. And by the way, COVID happens in 2020. That's what I would also tell me. So plan for 2020.
Yeah. The unpredictable. And this is in regards to the business. If you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently?
I don't think I'd do anything differently. No. Probably save a little more money, but it'll happen for a reason.
Exactly.
And maybe there are things that I could say get deeply into, but I don't think there's anything I would do differently, because I wouldn't be here talking to you.
You learn things, right? The difficulties often brings lessons in life that can be very rewarding as well. Emily, I thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your life lesson and wisdom with my audience. Appreciate you.
Pleasure to be with you. Thanks, Samuel.
This episode of Coffee with Closers is brought to you by One IMS, a leading digital marketing agency helping businesses win new customers. To request a free marketing ROI audit, please visit oneims.com. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. To make sure you never miss an episode, please subscribe.